The King has kicked off the year with a flurry of events and his schedule is filling up fast, including a visit to Italy and a proposed trip to Canada and the US. But we learned this week, thanks to an exclusive from Russell Myers, who will join us shortly, that the King will lead the nation in commemorating the 80th anniversary of VE Day, and he'll be joined by the Prince and Princess of Wales. Now, the late Queen gave this address to the nation to mark the 75th anniversary.
I speak to you today at the same hour as my father did exactly 75 years ago. His message then was a salute to the men and women at home and abroad who had sacrificed so much in pursuit of what he rightly called a great deliverance.
And King Charles marking the 80th anniversary fits in nicely, not only with the notion of the monarch leading the service, but it also continues on well from the King recently leading a delegation to Auschwitz to mark the 80th anniversary of its liberation. Joining me now is Royal Editor for the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, 2 exclusives from you in 2 weeks. What do we know so far about the plans for marking this special anniversary?
Well, hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me on. Well, just looking at that footage of the late Queen, it seems as though it was just yesterday and a lifetime ago, doesn't it? But 5 years ago for the 75th anniversary of VE Day, and now we are at the 80th anniversary. And with every major milestone comes the very sad truth that there are less and less veterans to experience this momentous occasion with us. So very, very important for the King, as head of the armed forces and as head of the monarchy, to be there and to be present. It's certainly a date in his diary he has cemented in for very many, many months now. So what I can tell you is that the celebrations are going to be across the country and across the world. Certainly the King will be the figurehead here in the UK. There'll be a service of commemoration at Westminster Abbey. There'll also be a service at the Cenotaph, which will be attended by other members of the royal family. And I think the Queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales will have key moments in those celebrations as well. We'll get to see a spectacular fly past on the Battle of Britain aerial team, as well as the Red Arrows. We've experienced them over the last few years with the coronation and Trooping the Colour. And this will be another spectacular moment as well. And I think just looking at the King's role, certainly, people I've spoken to at the palace have said it's very, very important for him to pay tribute to not only the servicemen and women of the past, but those who are serving overseas at the moment, away from their families, and to really honour their sacrifice and their service.
Indeed. Now, we know the Queen loves the arts, and she hosted an event this week at Buckingham Palace to celebrate Britain's best artistic talent. Now, what was this event about and who was in attendance?
Well, it's interesting because, there's been a lot of noise, of course, from the other side of the pond with Harry and Meghan's ventures, whether it's been, the great and the good at Invictus or Meghan's new series coming up. But, it's very much back to business with the Queen. She was hosting some really big celebs like Imelda Staunton, Andrew Garfield. We saw James Corden there as well. And it was an event to celebrate the work of the National Theatre. Of course, she has been patron of the organisation for many, many years now. Great theatre goer, real supporter of the arts, and bringing in the big guns from the British talent pool to really celebrate that work of the National Theatre. And I think that's something that the Queen has done really well over the last few years. Certainly, we were looking at the key pillars of her work, and the arts and literature is certainly one of those.
And still with the core business, I suppose, of the royal family, and we understand the Royal Collection Trust at St James Palace is reopening. What can we expect?
Well, this is really interesting because, after the success of the East Wing reopening at Buckingham Palace, I was lucky to go there last year. And, it's absolutely spectacular what the Royal Collection Trust do. They've put a lot of effort, a lot of money back into renovating these great palaces. And St James's was really the centre of the royal court for 300 years before Queen Victoria moved into Buckingham Palace. So there is acres and acres of history to be enjoyed there. So if you are in the UK at all in April and May, there is going to be this sort of launch event where you'll be able to go to St James's Palace. And I think much like the East Wing at Buckingham Palace, they'll use this as a test event for hopefully future years, so more and more people could come and experience the wonder of the palace, because they are absolutely fascinating places to be in.
Now over to the other side of the pond, and on a recent trip to Canada, Harry and Meghan met with representatives from the Squamish Nation. Now, during this, they were thanked for righting the wrongs of the past. Now, I appreciate the sentiment, Russell, but there's a really fine line to be walked here, isn't there?
Well, there is, and I don't think there's any getting away from that because, there's been instances in the past when the Squamish Nation elders have tried to meet senior members of the royal family, and most notably the late Queen and Duke of Edinburgh and her father before that. And so for Harry and Meghan going to meet the Squamish Nation Indigenous population is a really, really big deal. I was in Canada in 2022 with the Prince of Wales, as he was then, King Charles, and talking to Indigenous populations. There is a real fractured and checkered history, to say the least, between the British royal family and the Indigenous populations of Canada. And Charles was there to sort of listen. And I think that Harry and Meghan's attendance at an event for the Squamish Nation's peoples is very, very significant because they want to try and right the wrongs of the relationship with the royal family, certainly as Harry and Meghan were there as sort of representatives of themselves, I think, really, for the Invictus Games. But, of course, they represent the British royal family as well. And whilst they weren't necessarily speaking on behalf of the monarchy, certainly I think that the Squamish Nation thought that this was a step in the right direction, if you will, to try and right those wrongs and heal those old wounds of the past relationships.
That's fair enough, and I suppose these things all need to be dealt with very delicately. Now, we spoke earlier in the show about the launch of Meghan's new lifestyle brand, As Ever. Clearly, there's been a little bit of kickback, but what, if any, response from the Sussexes or any other observations you'd like to make about the relaunch?
Well, listen, it's gone off to a big bang, hasn't it? And anything that Meghan does touch at the moment is going to be poured over by commentators or people in the industry looking at what her next move. And it did seem a bit left field that she'd completely relaunched this brand after American Riviera Orchard. And I think that the very fact that I couldn't even say the title there tells you of the difficulties that Meghan was having, not only because of the trademark, because it wasn't very a snappy title. So she's come out with this brand that she said she secured in 2022. That's come into even bigger problems because there's a clothing line with the same name. There's also a Spanish town that is claiming that she's copyrighted their famous logo in Mallorca. But I think when we're settled down, it'll be very interesting to see what the content is from her Netflix series. She's talking about a partnership with Netflix, and it's all about merch these days, isn't it? When you go to a big concert, all the bands make a lot of money from the merchandise, and Meghan is probably hoping that their Netflix will help her in her publication, in publicising the merchandise for her programme and the As Ever brand. But I think watch this space in terms of what the next direction for Meghan Markle is.
And on the partnership with Netflix, there's talk about a separation between Meghan's Netflix show and this new brand. Can you explain that to us?
Well, we saw with the mood board that she'd put up during the week, and again, using her platform on Instagram is very interesting that she's still pushing her own PR. But there must be two parts of the separation of the deal here, because she's saying that Netflix are in as a partnership as well, but she's got the program coming out on March the 4th that was obviously pushed back because of the Californian wildfires. But her brand is very interesting to brand experts that I've spoken about, because she's very much trying to relaunch herself on something that she previously did. This is part of the As Ever brand, as it always was, she said. But they're talking about that merchandise. That will be, bringing the big bucks, and it's not just going to be jams that she's selling. It's going to be sort of tableware and invitations and a real sort of lifestyle creation about her name and about her association with the royal family. And could that get her into further hot water with the royals? I suppose we'll just have to see what comes out on the website in the next few weeks and months.
Oh, well, it'll be very interesting to see. No doubt there is never a dull moment with the Sussexes, so we will have to wait and see. Thank you, as always, Russell Myers.